Alright everybody, the name of this video is green light, red light, yellow light. And yes, it's supposed to mimic like traffic lights. And why am I doing should you not buy or should not sell? Because traffic lights can change. I feel like if I tell you not to buy or to buy, it's very concrete. This is just to kind of give you some supporting stuff if you like it, maybe warn you about some stuff if you're not sure. And if you're on the fence, hopefully I can give you a perspective in which you will find out whether you'll like this game from the get-go or maybe you should wait / not buy it right away. So we're going to start with, I did do a video back in June of last year, I believe. It was much more, I'd call emotional and more of just me ranting about the game. That is not this. This is going to be talking about the core systems, what the game looks like, and what to expect. I'm going to be just playing the Steam loop the whole time so you can kind of see the art style, what things look like, the names of areas. Really shouldn't be too many spoilers because it's up on the Steam page now. Alright, there's going to be a small skip. I was going to mention there's going to be no spoilers in the videos. However, I think there was one-ish, but you wouldn't know. Obviously, I would since I've played the game, but it won't come to a surprise as you. So I'm just going to keep it up there. No harm, no foul. Like I said, if there's a spoiler, like a major one somehow, I'll definitely put a black box over the screen. But other than that, let's get into this. We're going to start with green light and red light first because they're the most concrete and sure. You probably know whether you're going to buy this game or not, but I'm hopefully going to give you reinforcing opinions whether or not you agree. So here are some reasons why you'd be a green light. The combat's still good and probably some of the better, if not best, of the games like this. I'm talking about like the Darkest Dungeon style, 4 people sitting in a corridor, you know, not moving, 3D style. I've always thought Darkest Dungeon has had a very good skill variety and item variety that allow for good combat, and that continues right on into this game, so I wouldn't worry about that. The enemies are well done aesthetically and will give you a challenge, there's no doubt about that. The art style is updated and sleek, and the finishing animations of people between their skills is a really nice touch. There are 5 acts, and the game has a similar road system every time, so it's quick learning. The combat token system allows for a more calculated approach, allowing you to judge where the battle is going to go a few turns from now, or obviously set yourself up for a surefire strategy most times. Finally, the game is a lot quicker, so if you didn't like the grinding aspect of the first game, each run's probably going to be about 2 to 3 hours, so Red Hook definitely delivered here. The relationship system is fixed. I don't think it's a huge positive, but certainly not a huge negative anymore. It's a game mechanic you have to be aware of, but it definitely doesn't ruin gameplay or ruin your game experience anymore. All in all, if you liked the combat of the first game, you hated the grind of the first game, you just want quicker runs, like Slay the Spire style, maybe Iras Lord of the Dead, I would be very shocked to hear why you would be hesitant to buy this game. I think if you like all those things, check them off. Obviously, if you're green light, listen for the red light and a little bit more into the yellow to make sure maybe I didn't miss something big where you'd go, oh, you didn't mention that in the green light, or maybe that thing in the red light is actually so big, I don't think I'm a green light anymore. So let's go on to red light now. Party creativity is limited now, even though some heroes can play similar roles. The problem is you don't build your own roster. You have to play the same party for hours, and you can't have duplicates. If these are things that would bother you, just consider how much you did those things and how much you enjoyed those freedoms. It may not be a game breaker, but it's just something to be aware of. You're going to play the same party for a while unless someone dies or you hire someone else mid-game. I'm not going to say who. Once again, I'm not going to spoil too much. But party creativity, just compared to the first game, is obviously less. Now, it may not be to the point where you think it's substantial, but it's something to be aware of. I think it's good for a few runs until you hit mass repetition in enemies and fighting style. And I know I might get a little pushback here because the first game had mostly the same enemies and you were doing a lot of grind, so that had mass repetition. What I'm going to say about this is, essentially once you do a few run-throughs, it's not like you get the veteran and new enemies are introduced. You don't get the champion, new enemies are introduced. Each people have like different effects to their skill. It just feels very limited in the progression of enemies. And that, maybe the new acts will have something different, 4 and 5. This is obviously coming out pre 1.0 release. Some of the stuff may not be applicable, some of it may still be. So obviously if the game comes out, take this video based on the core mechanics and then reevaluate based on the patch. I think the candle and shrine system are a little lackluster. The shrine's nice for people's backstories, but it's kind of annoying. You have to unlock skills and you can't choose which ones you want to unlock, and they're RNG based. So that's a little annoying. And obviously, if you're hoping for Darkest Dungeon 1.5 in terms of progression and game style, that was not the developer's choice. They have the freedom to do so, as you have the freedom to decide whether or not you like games like Slay the Spire more than Darkest Dungeon. That was kind of a longer progression. I assume that's probably going to be the biggest difference for people, is this is not a long grindy get attached to heroes, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the yellow. This is much more, let's get through a run. If we fail, who cares? Restart. The candle system is a progression system. I think it's a little basic, and you have to unlock things with it. So you're kind of stuck with just getting enough candles in the beginning to be good enough to eventually then play the game. They did fix the first area where you can probably get through in your first try or two, because they shortened it, and I think they reduced some stuff in there. So the first area the first act is no longer as brutal as it used to be, and that might be just enough to get people enough candles for then obviously acts 2 through 5. So the token system and art style. I know I just mentioned those were positives, but obviously positives for some are negatives for other. I didn't mind the art style change. Some people are just really not happy with it. Look at the art style. Look at the art style of the first game. Is it something that's going to drive you bonkers? If it is, heavily consider it. I think you would get used to it, but if you don't think you could, obviously don't buy the game. If you didn't play the first game, I kind of struggle to think why you wouldn't like this. The only thing I could think is maybe it feels too mobile, but I don't think it suffers from that. Now, the combat system and tokens, I think combat in this game is a little too repetitious, which I know is hilarious because, once again, first Darkest Dungeon, you're really going through a lot. But it also adds a little too much predictability for me, and then to the point where it's actually then a coin toss in a way, and I'll tell you why. So the reason why it can be more of a coin toss is if you don't have a way to take off a blind token or dodge, enemies have a 50 to 75% chance to either miss, dodge, whatever. That's massive. There's no way to make up that gap unless, like I said, you either throw an item to get rid of your blind token or their dodge token, or you obviously have a skill that can remove that. So I find that it's a little weird that, yes, your attack will always hit until there's, at a minimal 50% chance it won't. I find that kind of annoying. I kind of like the 80 to 90% or eventually 100% if you got your people's accuracy up. It felt like it was a mechanic of the game that was very important because you could work towards it to kill your enemies reliably, or you could go heavy hitting, but have obviously an 80% chance. That's no longer this. I find the token system a little dry, a little boring, a little too predictable. It leads to just very XYZ combat, which I don't think is good for a game like this. Now, I talked about the green light and the red light. Let's really talk about yellow light, the people I really want to talk to about this. You've seen all the negative reviews. You've seen people say, oh, it's better than the first game. How's that possible? How's it the worst thing ever made? How's it a failure to reinvent the wheel and at the same time it trumps the first game? Well, that's anything in life. You're going to find fanatics on both sides. But I think the biggest thing you're going to find out is people who like the Slay the Spire style, quicker gameplay with more predictable combat are going to say this destroys the first game. You're going to find people who like the journey, creating their own roster, building their town, choosing what they wanted, going to dungeons they wanted. It's just, the first game had so much freedom and everything you wanted to do, and you eventually obviously works towards the end. It's not like a complete open world. But the first game had a much more, you're not pushing me at a pace you want, it's the pace I want. And some people really enjoy that. I know I did, because the thing I usually dislike about roguelikes, especially the Slay the Spire style, and the same with Iratus, is you're always getting pushed ahead. There's no, let me just, trim up here. It just feels like you're always trying to do the best with what you got. And some people love those games, because why? They're hard, they're fast moving, they make you think. Some people don't like that style. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is you have to ask yourself, in the first Darkest Dungeon, what did I enjoy? And if you didn't play the first Darkest Dungeon, ask yourself, do I like Slay the Spire, Iratus, Lord of the Dead style, or do I like games where I can take them at my own leisure? It's very important to understand that about yourself, because that is ultimately going to decide whether you like this game or not, because this game's going to push you through. It's going to be repetitive, it's going to be quick, and you're going to really keep nothing from run to run other than candles and the skills you picked up. But those are just mandatory things to actually play the game. I wouldn't say they're really a progression system. I would say like you literally, if you never got any actual significant buffs from run to run, they would have had to revamp the whole game. So it's not like, I don't want to say, you get to choose what trinkets and other stuff you get in town, but it's nowhere near like, do I make skills cheaper or do I get a new tier of skills? The progression system's pretty dumbed down, which it has to be because the way they design the game, once again, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, you have to ask yourself, did you like the freedom or did you like the combat and just want to do combat and keep getting pushed through? And you don't want to take all that time to just worry about weeks, people disappearing, all of that stuff. Ultimately, there's not too much more I can tell you. If you're on the fence, wait a week or two. Ignore Steam reviews that have less than 5 to 10 hours, positive or negative. And the reason why I say that is I think you have to at least play probably at like the bare minimum to understand this game and really decide you're going to like it or not, 5 hours. I think there will be things you'll obviously see you like and dislike within literally the first 30 minutes, but I think to get the full experience, what the game is going to offer you, it's got to be at least 10 hours. But you're going to see a lot of people post reviews less than 2 hours because they want their money back. They're going to say, not DD 1.5, negative review. That's not helpful. We all know it's not Darkest Dungeon 1.5. They blatantly told you it's not Darkest Dungeon 1.5. Don't buy the game if you want Darkest Dungeon 1.5. Those are the only people I think in concrete I'm going to strictly tell you, don't buy the game. It's the worst case scenario. Not only do you leave a negative review, Red Hook doesn't get money, and you're disappointed in a game. Literally nobody wins. At least if you don't buy the game, Red Hook doesn't get a negative review, and you don't have that generically bad experience. Thank you for watching. Please let me know about your comments down below. And May 8th is very close. What is that? It's 12 days away or whatever. So we'll see how the game drops. We'll see the new bosses. I'll probably be a little slow to put out videos, but we'll definitely do all the bosses and videos. Thanks for watching.